After a visit to the local carpenters to pick up some Formica, I start working on fixing up the galley, but with launch day quickly approaching, there are some outside jobs that beg for my attention. A new step on the transom will improve access to the swim platform, but it requires me to make another not-so-pleasant dive down the aft locker. A nice surprise turns up though when a pair of dinghy rings davits arrive and I just have time to put them on before it's time to put the lady back in the water. My name is Andy, and this is the story of one small ship. Well, having spent the past 2 days just polishing and anti-fouling the hull, I came down here early this morning to sort out the last couple of details, and then the splashing went without a hitch, and now I'm here getting ready to check the oil, check the coolant, and start the engine. And then I'm going to mosey over onto our berth where I'll tidy up a little bit and get ready to get back into things. There's a lot to get stuck into, and I'm going to have to come up with some sort of plan in order to not lose myself completely in all the projects I'm working on. But first of all, let's get Marella back to her home. Apart from the engine being a bit starved for diesel, that all went really well. So with Marella now back at her berth, it's time to think about next steps. I've got a bunch of things going on right now, and I really need to figure out what my priorities are. So far this spring I've made new standing rigging. That should be just as simple as putting on the mast. I've also made new lifelines. Those are already on the boat, but putting them on made me realise that a few of the stanchions are a bit wonky, and I want to fix that. It's not a priority though, so for now I'll just make a note of it and move on. Yesterday I went to pick up my repaired spray hood. It was repaired by a shop here in Gothenburg called Canvascraft, and they really did a great job. I wholeheartedly recommend their service. They even fixed a couple of things that I'd forgotten to mention to them at no extra cost, so thumbs up for them. Now that I have my spray hood back, I want to put it back on the boat. But before I do that, I want to make sure that there's nothing more to do around the cabin top area. The only thing left there is, I think, to glue down the new solar panel. So that's going to be my first priority. And then there is this. The companionway trim on this side is completely loose, and this one is not very well adhered either. So I need to get in here and fill out the area inside this bulkhead with epoxy and drill out new holes so that I can fasten these down properly. I also want to do the same with the holes for the grab rails so that I can fasten those down as well. Then there's the countertop in the galley. I bought a new sink, which I hope I'm going to be able to fit in here with a new countertop covered in the matte white Formica that I managed to track down. I'll use the same material to laminate the shelf in the head, and I'll need to fashion trim for that. I found some great teak offcuts at the lumberyard to help with that. There's a lot of new wood that's got into the boat at this point, and I really need to varnish all of that. That means the locker here below the oven and also the trim in the head, which didn't get done last year. And last but not least, we have to get the dinghy down here so that we can adjust and try out the dinghy rings. But I think I'm going to leave that until after we've stepped the mast so that the dinghy is out of the way while we get everything sorted. There's a lot more on my list, but those are the things I'm prioritizing right now. I had to remind myself that we've actually splashed 2 weeks earlier this year, so with that in mind, I think we're doing reasonably well. But for now, I'm going to stop rambling on and I'm going to get up there and I'm going to glue that solar panel down so that we can put the spray hood back up. Well, the plywood is here. So today I'm going to get to fabricating the new countertop for the galley. And Amelia's with me, so while I'm doing that, she's going to be tidying up and making the boat a little bit more livable. But first, I brought the cockpit tent down with me today, so I'm going to put that up, get us out of the wind, and then we'll get to work. Now that we've got some room to work down here, I can get going on removing the old galley countertop. And to do that, I need to remove this step that I'm sitting on and the old sink and faucet. So I'm going to get going on removing those, and then hopefully I just have to screw this out and lift it out of there. I spent a couple hours cleaning up in here, and while it is better now, it's still pretty janky. Over the years, people have spilled diesel and oil and other chemicals into the starboard locker, which is just beyond this bulkhead, and that's been pooling neatly here in the space underneath the galley and marinated into the fiberglass and the woodwork, and it really does smell a little bit, and it's pretty nasty, and I wish I could get rid of it. But I don't want to get into something right now that's going to steal all the time away from all the other projects I'm working on. So for now, I'm just going to make this serviceable and do the minimal amount of work that we can use this over the summer. And then come autumn or winter, hopefully I'll be able to get into tearing all this out and sorting it out. There are some other things I want to do which kind of require me to tear down a lot of the cabinetry in here, and hopefully I can combine that and see if I can make this place looking better while I'm working on that other stuff. But we're going to get to that further down the line. Now I'm going to just focus on making the new countertop, and that's going to be enough for this summer's work. The one remaining question about the countertop is what to do about the hatch for the icebox. Now, I know that I eventually want to rebuild this into a proper fridge, because this is really badly insulated and it does put a lot of strain on the batteries when the compressor has to run more often. So of course I want to be as efficient as possible. But when I rebuild this, I think I want to make the hatch smaller. It doesn't really have to be this big. And so I want to make it maybe 10 centimeters shorter on this end. And I think I want to rotate it 90 degrees like this. And if I do that and make it shorter, then when I open it, it probably won't bump into the side of the cockpit like it does now. It's been a few hours of cutting, filing, planing, and making all of the pieces fit in here, and I think I've got everything fairly well adjusted now. I'm going to cover up my shoddy workmanship with these trim pieces, and hopefully that's going to look pretty good. But I do want to get these joints here and here as perfect as I can, so tomorrow I'm going to take my miter saw back down here with me and cut these ends to exactly 45-degree angles, if I can get as close as possible at least. Sadly, as you can see, I am not a pro at this, and when I was cutting this board, I came at this cut with the saw from the opposite side, and the saw blade kind of slipped and I ruined this board, but I can hopefully salvage it by putting this trim on there, and it just about covers the edge. I did chip away a piece of the top veneer, but I think I can salvage that by filling it in with epoxy when I laminate the Formica on here. There, that looks pretty good. I still need to sand out this edge maybe another millimeter or so, so the sink will slot in and lift out easily. But other than that, I think this is decent. I had hoped to be able to laminate this today, but it got very late in the afternoon, so I'm not going to be able to do that. It's just as well, really, because if I do it tomorrow, then I'll have time to dig out the wash basin from the head as well and do that at the same time. And while that's curing, I think I'm going to head over and see about getting the mast ready for stepping. Then I'm going to have to figure out what to do about the hatch for the icebox, and I don't think I can make that cut very exact like on the original one. So I'm going to just cover the edge with some nice teak trim, and that's going to have to do. It does mean that this area is not going to be perfectly flat anymore, but it's all right. It's going to look nice anyway. Yeah, so time to go home, and I'll be back here tomorrow to hopefully laminate this.
My apologies for the shorter than usual video. This became sort of a two-parter, and the second part will be out already next week. We're hopefully on track to bring ourselves up to a more real-time video schedule, and if you've been following us on Instagram, you already know there are some crazy things happening, and I can't wait to share it in this format. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help us out by leaving a like. It really does make a big difference, and press subscribe and click the notification bell to follow us on our journey. You can also follow us on social media, check out the links below for that, and thank you so much for watching. Fair winds.